In this video, you will learn one thing that causes most of your problems. If you fix it, you won't believe how much better everything gets. If you do what I show you in this video, your horse will start paying more attention to you, he will not get scared by the surroundings as much, and it will become much easier to get rid of his bad habits. Your progress will be faster than ever. I recommend you to watch this video until the very end, so you'll learn the technique and also see a test I show in the end. Do you know what's needed to get your horse to pay attention to you and to what you want from him? And do you know how to make sure that your horse enjoys being around you and never really thinks about whether he can kick you or even bite you? I'm asking because if you answer that being nice to your horse will make him like you and listen to you, then you're wrong. However, even worse it would be to be nasty to your horse. What you really need is to be fair. Start with teaching your horse to listen to your simple requests really reliably. It's always easier to get your horse to do something simple. Then, as your horse learns that doing what you ask is not going to hurt him, when you start asking him to do more complicated things, it's gonna get much easier. You need to start with the simple things. Teach your horse to listen reliably and then build up on it. One of the greatest opportunities to improve your relationship with your horse and the way he listens to you in pretty much every situation is actually when you clean him. But let's start from the beginning. The first thing your horse needs to be capable of is standing still while he's tied to something. Important tip for this stage of the training is to use a special knot to tie your horse. This type of knot allows you to untie your horse very quickly in case he starts panicking. Right now you can see in slow motion the way I tie a knot that you can untie just by pulling the end of the rope. I basically create a loop through which I make another loop. Maybe you already know this, but I still want to show you how to do it just because, for example, especially during transport, I would never tie my horse using a regular knot. When I'm cleaning a horse that is tied to something, as you can see it in the video, I always want him to stay in one spot, without stepping forward or backwards. When you want your horse to pay attention to you and to listen to you, you also need to be paying all your attention to your horse. You can't really want your horse to pay attention to you while you are not paying attention to him. You can see in the video that as soon as I stopped paying attention to my horse, she immediately stepped away. Now I want my horse to stand still in one spot, and she moves somewhere. Even if it's just one step, I always back her up to the place where I want her to be standing. Even if my horse does it 10 times, I always put him back to where he is supposed to be standing. When my horse gets good at this and he's able to stand still while he's tied to something, I can start wanting a bit more. Now I want my horse to stand still untied in his stall. Every time my horse can do something well already, I move on and I want something more. Now the principle stays the same as it was when I wanted my horse to stand still while he was tied to something. I put my horse in a place where I want him to be standing, and if he moves somewhere, I always put him back to the spot where he is supposed to be standing. Even though I can just walk around my horse while I clean him, sometimes I can change the place where I want him to be standing, but only when I want to, not when he decides to move by himself. Stall is actually the ideal place to start teaching your horse to respect what you want, even when you can't use your rein to make him do anything. In a small space you have good control over your horse and you can always easily correct him when he does something that you don't want. The next step is that I want my horse to react better on my small pressure. I want to be able to control my horse using the least amounts of pressure possible while riding on him. And the best place to start teaching him to react on very small amounts of pressure is while working with him from the ground, or just taking everyday care of him. Now I will show you what you should not do. Teaching your horse to react on your pressure doesn't mean trying to push him. If your horse doesn't move away from your pressure, just use edge of a brush or something pointy to make him move. You always want your horse to move away from light pressure. Don't turn it into a wrestling contest. Have you thought about how can the horse tell when he should move and when I'm just touching him during cleaning and I want him to stay? Well, if you want something simple from your horse, it's going to be easy for him to understand and he's going to be much happier listening to you. Did you see how we moved from just having our horse tied on the lead rope all the way to having him stand still by himself? Well, if you take it step by step, it's not difficult. If you take it step by step, you can even do this. However, cleaning my horse not tied to anything in open space is not something that I do very often. And before trying it for the first time, I first practice it in a stall and make sure that my horse listens to me well. And by that, I don't mean that he did it well once, but by that I mean that he's reliable for some time already. Then, if it's good for some time, I try it in some larger closed space, such as a closed ring. I want my horse to stay still even when I walk away from him. I want him to keep standing still and wait for me to return. If you manage that, you can try it in an open space. When you want your horse to listen to you, start with the easiest, which is for your horse to move away from your pressure while working on the ground. And also for him to stay when you want him to stay still somewhere. When you want your horse to stay still when he's tied to something, it's not that difficult for him because he knows that he wouldn't be going far anyways. It's still kind of similar in a stall where he still doesn't have much space. By consistently wanting your horse to do simple things well, you can over time achieve some more complex and difficult things. I actually use the same approach while riding on my horse. Do you know what's one of the reasons why some riders have constant trouble with their horse? It's that they still didn't teach their horse to reliably perform the simple things. For example, they want their horse to listen to them in canter, while he doesn't even listen to them properly in trot, or even on the ground while they clean him. If your horse listens to you reliably from the ground, it doesn't mean that once you get in a saddle, everything is going to be amazing right from the beginning. However, it means that because your horse already got used to listening to you reliably on the ground, your progress while riding is going to be much quicker and also much easier. Also, actually the basic principles that I use teaching my horse something from the ground are the same as when I teach him something from the saddle. When my horse does something well, I reward him. When he does something badly, I correct him and I repeat it. Your horse is going to understand what's going on and listen to you only if you are going to be treating him the same all the time. Simply be very consistent. If you'll be asking your horse to do mainly the things that he already knows and can perform, doesn't matter if it's when you are riding on him or taking everyday care of him, he's going to easily understand what you want and it's gonna get natural for him to just do what you ask. If you leave your horse to walk around as he pleases while you are cleaning him, he's not going to be walking exactly where you want him to once you get in the saddle neither. Horses naturally follow a very simple hierarchy. It's something they understand well. They either listen to someone all the time or they want someone else to listen to them all the time. That's simply how horses behave in the nature. Horses don't understand it when sometimes you let them do what they want and sometimes you want them to listen to you. You are not being nice to your horse by allowing him to do mistakes and behave badly. The only thing that happens is that you make a mess in his head. If you are not going to be consistent and sometimes you will let your horse to do what he wants and then you will want him to listen to you, he will end up constantly trying whether he really has to listen to you or he doesn't. And this way you will end up with an unreliable horse full of bad habits. Now you can see how I teach my horses to pay attention to me and to what I want, instead of paying attention to their surroundings. First, it's important to be able to tell how much attention is your horse actually paying to you. You can be sure that your horse pays full attention to you when he keeps you in his sight with at least one of his eyes, and quickly reacts after you ask for something. Then, if your horse turns his ear towards you as soon as you ask for something, it sort of means that he's paying kind of partial attention to you. If it's this case, it's not that bad, but it's still important to work on improving it. But if your horse doesn't react on your pressure and you asking him for something, not even by turning his ear to you, it of course means that he's completely ignoring you. When I want my horse to reliably listen to me, I need him to be paying as much attention to me as possible. When you are trying to get your horse to listen to you or to learn something new, but he's not paying attention to you, it's sort of like speaking to someone that is not listening to you and thinking about something completely different. Let's take a look again at how I'm trying to maintain my horse's attention while I stand next to him. I can gain my horse's attention by simply touching him for him to realize that I'm still next to him. If my horse doesn't react, I use more pressure until he turns his ear towards me. As soon as he does it and starts paying attention to me, I reward him. The principle here is actually very similar to what you do teaching your horse just about anything else. And it's the same with lunging. While lunging, I also want my horse to quickly react and do what I want. And again, for that, I need his full attention. If my horse turns his ear towards me, it means that he's paying attention to me and he's likely to listen well and react quickly. If you want your horse to constantly pay attention to you while lunging, it's not good to be doing one thing with him for too long. Simply keep your horse occupied, transition between gaits often, trot, walk, trot, canter, and so on. Change direction, and occasionally you can let your horse just stop, stand still, and rest for a bit. Like this, you can teach your horse to pay attention only to you much quicker, other than if you just let him walk around for 5 minutes in one direction. If you work on this, you will also start noticing that as your horse pays more attention to you, he will stop getting scared by the surroundings as much. Now I'm going to show you what your horse should know before you start riding on him. It's basically similar to what I wanted my horse to be doing in his stall while I was cleaning him. I want my horse to back up in front of me easily, requiring my minimal efforts. I want my horse to be able to stay calm in one place when I want him to. And I also want my horse to react well on my pressure when I want him to move. I want my horse to be reacting well, and I want him to be moving away from the pressure with his back or just with his front legs. Over time, I want my horse to react on smaller and smaller amounts of pressure. I don't really want to be wrestling with my horse having to push him. If my horse doesn't react, I use a whip, for example, to make sure that he does what I asked. Exactly as you are going to see it in a video. But why do I do all this? Everyone wants their horse to listen, however not everyone thinks about how to really structure the training and how to behave around their horse in various situations. If you know those things, it's going to be much easier for your horse to understand what you want and to listen to you. In order for your horse to listen to you, he first needs to simply understand what is it that you want from him. Here I teach my horse the same things as are the basis of the whole horse riding, which is for your horse to move away from your pressure. You urge your horse by using the pressure of your legs, you stop your horse pulling reins, creating pressure in the bit. If you use the pressure of one leg only, you can do a side pass, and so on. If I start working with my horse from the ground first, then it's going to be easier for him to understand what I want once I get into the saddle. It doesn't mean that when I sit on a horse he's already going to know everything. However, it means that it's going to be much easier for him to understand everything that I'll be asking. I spend around 3 to 5 minutes with groundwork after lunging, and then it takes you no extra time to make sure your horse pays attention to you and listens to you while you clean him. These two things will have a huge impact on everything else in your training and your relationship with your horse. The change is going to be noticeable everywhere. In this video, I'm showing you how to gain and keep your horse's attention, how to allow your horse to understand you, and how to gain his respect and start improving very quickly. Now I will show you how can you check the level of respect your horse actually has towards you. Put some food in front of your horse. It can be an apple or whatever else you will find. Then let your horse stand in front of it for around 10 to 15 seconds. If your horse keeps standing in the same spot and waits for you to let him go, or depending on how difficult it's gonna be to prevent your horse from eating it, you will see the level of respect your horse has towards you. However, only try this when you already feel that your horse is respecting you. Otherwise, discovering that you don't have any respect with your horse could even hurt. When you discover that you have respect with your horse, it's great, because you just accomplished a very important and for some people quite difficult task. If you discover that you need more respect from your horse, I can tell you two things. First one is, don't blame it on your horse. And the second one is, you can definitely change it and gain your horse's respect. Now you learned how to do it in this video. Simply follow the steps I showed, be super consistent, and you will be surprised by the progress. When I learned about respect and made sure I do all those little things I was showing, the results were great. I seriously felt as if it was some magic pill. Everything all of a sudden got better and easier. I really recommend you to try this and let me know whether it helped you to improve as well. Thank you for watching. Let me know how you liked the video and whether you have your horse's respect or not in the comments below the video. You can also like and share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching and see you in the next training video that I'll be sending to you in just a few days.